What family secret was finally spilled in your family? When my sister was diagnosed with cancer and her survival chances were low, it inevitably came out that she wasn't my sister. Parents must have felt we should all know the truth just in case. She survived her treatment and will always be my sister. It wasn't a situation related to my grandpa cheating either. It was a sperm donation. So they knew this was the case his entire life. Pretty crazy, they never told him. His parents did not pass until he was 65 years old. Talk about a code. After my grandfather passed, we found out he had fathered a child when he was posted in Italy during WWII. He never knew. His mother intercepted any letters from the Italian jar. He came home, met and married my grandmother, and had 4 children. I forget who in the family found out and how. It's crazy to think we have a whole Italian family out there. My dad fathered a child in high school. His side of the family knew, and my mum. We found out years after he died that we have a half-sister. Found out my uncle is actually my brother. My mum had him when she was so young that my grandparents raised him. My great-great-grandfather was exiled, banned from Missouri for being a sheep thief. My grandmother recently died. She was famous in our town for her amazing cooking/catering, in particular her turkey dinners. Notably, her grave was absolutely amazing, so delicious. She had a heart attack several years ago, and a near-death experience convinced her to share some of her secret recipes with me, all except for her gravy recipe. When she died this spring, I was going through her pantry and found an entire bucket of gravy mix. She was literally using gravy mix as a base to make her incredible gravy. Huge. No edit used in famous when I meant famous. Right after my grandma passed away, we found out she had a secret son she gave up for adoption. Thanks Ancestry.com. Crazy thing is, my wife just found out she has an uncle nobody ever knew about from her dad's side. Thank you, 23andMe. These ancestry sites are wrecking things up. My mother had a child when she was a teenager, and she'd given him up for adoption to a family. After this, she went to college, got her degree, married my father, and gave birth to my 4 siblings and myself, 30 years after giving her child up for adoption. I remember her getting a phone call and immediately locking herself in her room. I was about 12 at the time. I remember feeling scared because I could hear my mum crying. But she didn't want to see anybody or talk about why she was crying. On an evening later that week, my parents sat each of us kids down and told us about my mum's past and explained that my half-brother had reached out to my mum, wanting to meet her and get to know her. My dad had known ever since he and mum were dating in college, and I believe my oldest sister had been told previous to this point. But the rest of my siblings and myself, and all of the in-laws on my dad's side, my grandma, aunts, and uncles, etc., didn't know about this part of her past. We are fairly religious/conservative, so it was really shocking at first. My mum then flew out to the state where my half-brother lived with her sisters and met him. Both my mum and my half-brother were both very nervous about the whole thing. But by the end of their trip meeting each other, they got to rebuild a relationship. After a bit of time, we, my siblings, and I got to meet him too. Fast-forwarding to now, he's since moved to our same state, and we see him much more frequently. He's in all our family pictures. We see him occasionally for holidays and birthdays, and we all see him as part of our family. We're a very close-knit and extroverted family, while he is much shyer. So at times he can be a bit more distant than we would like, but we give him his space. I know my mum stays in close touch with him, and we love it when he's able to make it for family dinners and whatnot. Back then, I was the youngest, and up till then, the only boy in my family. So I loved learning that I had an older brother. Now that I am an adult, I sometimes get his old clothes because we're roughly the same size. He's got good taste too, so I really lucked out hard. I love that this family secret was spilled, and that we were able to welcome my brother into our family and have him in our lives. My mother often had stories like, "At your age, we got up at 4 to work on the farm. After the job, we went home to have lunch with your grandfather. Then we walked in to go to school. And when we were back, we used to work in the field in a tractor until it was 6 to go and cook dinner for your grandfather." And me like, "Yeah, but he didn't work at the farm with you in the morning." And she was changing the subject. "I learned in Easter that my grandfather was alcoholic, got drunk every night, didn't get up in the morning to go to work, or was in fake jobs to lie to the family and go to drink, while the children had to go in elementary school and manage a farm. Then he was in prison because he touched the neighbour's children. When he got out of prison, he took out a loan of 30,000 in my grandmother's name and ran away with the money. Then he died a few years later. My grandmother bought herself a news Ford, and no one cried at the funeral. 30 years later, I learned who my grandfather was."